Hello everyone, and welcome to Capitol Watch, our look at the Missouri General Assembly and legislation that could have an impact on our public schools. And joining me from our governmental relations offices in Jefferson City is our Associate Executive Director for Advocacy and our Chief Lobbyist, Mike Reed. And Mike, one of the important issues we're keeping an eye on now, of course, is the state budget and the potential funding for our public schools for the coming year. And the House Budget Committee has been is considering a proposal that would actually reduce the proposed increase to the formula. Tell us about that and where that all stands now.
That's correct. The Budget Committee is examining this week the money that perhaps will come to public education. The problem is the money is reduced from where the governor wanted and is reduced from where we think it should be for the foundation formula. It is about presently, there is a $60 million hole that needs to be filled first between schools that are under the formula and schools that are hold harmless. This appears not to fund that fully. There's a lot of questions about where the money is going and where it's coming in from. Money seems to be very tight this year, and the House Committee is reducing what the governor has asked for in numerous places, and ours is one of them. The governor asked for $85 million increase in the foundation formula. This increase is much less than that. The budget is written that there could be a potential up to $76 million in new money in the foundation formula, but that's based upon whether money comes in from various sources such as gaming and lottery. So there are a lot of moving parts into it. The biggest question right now is, will we fully fund the formula? The answer is no. Are we getting a reduction in money? It appears that that answer is yes, and it is necessary because of all the different aspects of the budget and the different pulls on the budget that our members talk to their representatives and tell them to fund the formula as fully as possible, because it's hard for us to budget when we're working on money that may or may not come in.
So Mike, under the House plan that's under consideration, about a $23 million increase, I think, is what they're considering at the moment. But even though that's an increase, we could see some districts actually have a cut in state funding as a result of that. Isn't that right?
That is correct. While it looks like it's an increase in part of it, there will be some districts that may receive a cut in state funds because of that, because of the different pools. Also, the fact that this year, from the foundation formula, money for preschool education will be going to some school districts. So we are having more demands on the formula and less money coming into it.
Another issue that seems to be moving, Mike, has to do with school report cards. Where does that stand?
Yes, the school report card bill, which is pushed by a group called ALEC and was sponsored by Senator Emery, came out of the Senate committee this week. The problem with that piece of legislation. It attempts to put a letter grade on each building, and it doesn't reflect what's actually happening in that building. So it puts a false front on education in the state. We believe it's much more important for parents to look at how the test scores have happened in that building and how they've grown or not grown, and what the facilities are in the building, rather than just a single letter report card.
Another issue that's received some attention this year, Mike, has to do with screening students for dyslexia. And tell us about the bills related to that.
Yeah, there have been a lot of bills on dyslexia and screening students and what should be done. Presently, there's a bill that is going through that has a dyslexia committee to look at dyslexia and the best way that students can be served and tested. That bill probably is the one that will pass. First of all, you first start with the committee to look at what is the proper way to screen, and then DESE will then develop guidelines for screening for students with dyslexia, so we can identify students who are having a problem at an early age and do some help to make sure that they come along as they should and get the proper attention they should.
Another issue, Mike, that's received a lot of attention so far during the session is ethics reform, mainly as it relates to the General Assembly members themselves. But some of the provisions might have an impact, I guess, on school board members and superintendents, couldn't it?
Yes, there are several bills that have gone through. A couple of bills that deal with ethics. One of them deals with filing personal financial disclosure reports, and it would require those people who are required to file twice a year instead of once a year. But the bigger ethics bill is the one that bans meals, food, and beverages for elected officials in the General Assembly. That bill was expanded with an amendment to add school boards and superintendents under those people who have to be reported on by a lobbyist if that lobbyist is a local governmental official lobbyist. So there's nothing on the board members that have to do anything, but those individuals who are trying to sell or influence the action of local boards may have some new reporting requirements. That bill was debated for some time this week in the Senate. It was laid over, and I expect it'll be brought back in the next week or so and for final passage.
Mike, we have some state tax cuts previously approved by the General Assembly that will be taking effect in the future, but we also have now some additional proposals that would reduce state taxes even more and possibly affect state revenue available to fund our public schools. So tell us about that legislation.
That's correct. Senator Schmidt has filed a bill to increase the tax deductions that were previously passed by the General Assembly. The new tax deductions go into effect in 2017, and it reduces the top income tax from 6% to 5.5%. Senator Smith's bill would reduce it to 5%. It would double the amount of the tax decrease. It is still a work in progress, but what appears to us is that there's going to be a reduction in the amount of general revenue, amount of money available for schools and for other entities in state government. We haven't even seen how the first tax cut will affect state government, and now we're trying to do another tax cut. I think we need to wait and see what happens with the first one. The first, it goes from 5 to 5.5% before we go any farther.
Getting back to the foundation formula, Mike, we've seen some legislation this year that would change what's called the adequacy target that really defines the level of full funding for the formula. And those bills are still alive, aren't they?
Those bills are still alive. There are several bills that would change the way the adequacy target is determined. When the foundation formula was passed, there was a 5% cap on the growth of the adequacy target. And that was later taken off, and the adequacy target has then risen appreciably. There are bills now that will put that 5% growth cap back on the target, reducing the amount of money then that will be required to fully fund the formula. So right now the formula, can't say this sometimes today, the formula is not funded by amount of somewhere over $450 million. If in fact the adequacy target cap goes back on, full funding could be done with about another $140 million.
Well, Mike, with several weeks, of course, remaining in the legislative session, we still have some School Board Advocacy Network visits planned involving our members from around the state coming into Jefferson City. And those are important, aren't they, for our board members to visit their legislators in Jefferson City?
Oh, it's extremely important. It's vitally important that they come and visit their members of the General Assembly, because they are local officials talking to other local elected officials. This is when we need your help now to let the General Assembly know how their actions in Jefferson City affect you at home. This is not done in a vacuum. What they do affects you and students that you represent. So it's extremely important that you come and visit us. It's extremely important that you call or ask any questions about how what's going on in Jefferson City and how these may affect you, how these bills may affect you.
All right, Mike Reed, thanks a lot for this update on the activities of the Missouri General Assembly and how they may affect our public schools throughout the state. And of course, we'll be keeping you up to date during the remainder of the General Assembly with our daily Twitter feed, our blog that we post on our MSBA Action Center, and of course our Legislative Voice newsletter that we send to members every Friday during the legislative session. Thanks a lot for being with us on this edition of MSBA's Capitol Watch.